everyone, welcome back to Graybeard's Garage. I'm Graybeard. Got a good project for you here today. What we have is our 2022 Tri-Glide, the GI edition. As you can see, with all the bugs all over, I've definitely been putting the miles on it, but I figured I'd wait until after I get this project done before I get them cleaned up, because that way I won't get fingerprints all over the place. It's been excellent so far. No issues, no problems. Got a little over 3,000 miles on it already, and about, let's see, in 2 days from now it'll be 4 weeks that I've had it. So I've been doing all right with it. Really enjoy it. All right, the project we have today is I have another set of the LA Choppers Batwing ape hangers. These are 14-inch. These are the 1 1/4. As you can see, they're standard width down here. Then they get larger. These are heavy duty. I went and stuck them on the scale. They weigh 6 pounds just by themselves. So they're definitely heavy duty. They're not cheap whatsoever. You can see right here the thickness of the material. They're definitely heavy duty. So they're cut out so that you can run your internal wiring. And also they're notched for the throttle by wire. I'm more than pleased. They're the exact same bars that I put on my Ultra over here. So you get an idea what they look like once they're installed. These are the exact same bars. So my method of thinking here is I'm going to have both of these rides set up to where they feel the same when I'm riding. See, they don't rise up too awful high, extremely comfortable. I'm a pretty tall person with pretty long arms, and I do not have my arms completely extended with this height, and they're very comfortable. Another thing I like to take note is that these bars are actually wider than the stock bars. As a point of reference, these are the stock bars that came off of this Ultra. Of course, it would drop down a few more inches because I'm just setting it on top of the ignition switch there. But as you can see, they're a little bit wider, less angle on the pullback, which makes them a little bit more comfortable, so you're not having your wrist tweaked. Of course, you can tell the size difference. They're definitely humongous compared to the stock bars. But I really love these bars. The price has gone up on them a little bit. Whoops. When I purchased the ones from the Ultra a couple months back, I paid, I think it was $206 for those. Thanks to our wonderful inflation and everything, I ended up paying, with these on sale, $269. Now the only other thing I'm going to need for this project is I have the control extensions. These are 10-inch. Make sure whenever you order extensions, you get the right ones for your year and your model. And also here we have the Fat Baggeers 6-inch clutch extension. Comes with really intricate instructions. It's really simple, full color. I know exactly how to do it. The only thing you need is a 3/8 wrench, 7/16 wrench, and a screwdriver. That's all you need to change or add this, not change it out. But you'll be replacing the stock adjuster sleeve and the adjuster components on the top end. As you see here, this is the part that you will not be using. So this one here is all metal construction, and it's really nice compared to plastic and whatnot of the stock one. So we're going to be putting that on. When the time comes, we'll be putting the wire extensions on. So to start this project, we're going to have to remove the windshield, the outer fairing. I'm going to be removing the seat and the gas tank. Then once we get to that point, we're going to end up moving the fairing forward so we can access the head clamp for the handlebars. We're going to have to remove our control assemblies from the bars on both sides. And then when it comes time to put in the clutch extension, right back here along the frame, this is your clutch line running right here, and it sits back here behind this right here. So we'll end up popping that out and putting that extension in. Alright folks, I'm going to probably go into time lapse here. It's pretty simple. You have 4 bolts holding your tank on and a couple of connectors underneath the seats. We're going to get it up out of the way. All right, let's get this project going. Alright, so we got everything taken apart now, so now we're down to the nitty gritty. As you can see, we got full access to our head bolts for the steering head to remove the bars. This is going to be a real easy installation because the only wire that we have internally is the throttle by wire, which you can see here. So what we have to do now, luckily Harley gives us plenty of slack on this cable, so you don't have to use an extension on it. The only thing we do have to extend is our controls. And I'm going to keep these external. I'm not a big fan of running those internal. I like to still keep the stock look to some extent. As you can see, I did the same thing here on my Ultra. Got these cables running alongside the clutch line and the brake line. They're out of the way. There's no extra zip ties except for one on each end here where they come out from the control. It's still clean installation, so I can live with that. Makes it easier, because if you ever go running wires inside the bars, that's the worst thing there is, especially when you got bars like this that have compound ankles in different directions. So it's kind of a pain in the butt, but this is going to be pretty easy. So what we have to do next before we can pull the bars off, you follow this line down off your throttle by wire, and it comes down to right here on this connector. If I can get a good shot of it here, this little connector right here. So what we have to do is disconnect that. There we go. Pull it out here to the side. Got it disconnected from here, so now all we have to do is pull it up through the top side. Like so. And now we can pull out our 4 1/4-inch Allen heads here and take our bars off. And then after that, what we're going to have to do is this brake line here. We're going to follow it up underneath, and what we're going to have to do, just like I did on my Ultra, is if you notice this brake line, it comes down, let's see here, on the front side of this wiring harness here. So what we do is we disconnect these connections, and we have to feed it behind that brake line, and then we're going to move it up from over here higher and either alongside or possibly inside this carrier for all the wiring to give us the slack that we need, so we don't have to replace the brake line. A lot of times we may have to pop this cover off and put a little notch here for that brake line to ride inside, and it'll give us about an extra 4 or 5 inches of slack. So let me get these bars pulled off. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is we're going to pull our throttle by wire out. It's kind of a push-pull kind of ordeal here. You don't want to pull too hard so you don't damage your wiring. So you got to push a little in the hole and pull it at the same time. And once you get down here onto, there should be some connectors. Actually, that's the older models had connectors part way into the handlebars. If you're adventurous, you can go in and take your connectors off. You have to map out where your wires go before you do. And there it is, slid right out. So get these factory bars out of the way. As they give another idea of the difference in these bars. Pretty dramatic increase in size, but they're super comfortable. I recommend these to them. Once again, they're the LA Choppers Batwing A-Painters. Alright, so now it's time to run our throttle wires in through the handlebars. I personally prefer to use a steel cable. It's rather flexible and strong. It's not going to break on you once you get it in there. Use whatever you like. I've used paracord before. Any kind of heavy duty twine, or you can even use a piece of wire. I'd recommend like a 14 gauge or heavier. But main thing is just get something that's flexible and it's nice and strong. So what you're going to do is lay your cable, wire, string, whatever, alongside your wiring harness here. And you want to put as much pressure on the main harness as you can. You don't want to end up pulling your plugs off. So I'm going to lay it alongside here. And what I'm going to do is put a wrap or two on the harness itself. I'm going to put the cable down. Wrap this nice and tight. But you want as much surface area on this cable grabbing so that you get good tension on it. And also you can lift the cable up, go around once or twice nice and tight on there, and come back around on your wiring harness. It gives it more to grab. You just work your way up with it. Maybe one more time around just the cable itself. Say the indoor string, whichever way you prefer to use. It's up to you. And then from here you just want a loose wrap to hold your connectors down and to cover up your front edges connectors so they don't snag and turn on you. And a couple of winds nice and tight here at the beginning. The same thing is kind of a push and pull kind of issue. So you still got your flexibility here to make these pretty tight turns. So if all goes well, my cable won't slip out and we'll be able to get this done up. I'm going to start feeding it through. This first bend is the tightest from my experience on these bars. So once we get past this bend right here, we've got it made. So push and pull. Push and pull. All right, we're through the first bend. Push some slack in. Turn this around. We're going to do a little bit more leverage on it. There we go. It's going in nicely. And there's our first connector. Push in a little. There's our second connector. And don't be surprised your first time doing this if your string or cable, whatever, comes loose. It happens. Just kick back, take a deep breath, and try again. And the throttle assembly slid right in. And once you get that on, you slip your grip on. Make sure you got full function out of it. Everything's good. So now it's time to put the bars back on. Alright, so before we put the bars on, what we're going to do is we're going to put in our wire extensions for our controls. What you do is you look on the base of the radio here, your driver's side or left side, there's this connector right here. Disconnect it, find your appropriate cable. All the wiring should match up pretty dang close. I'll connect it in there. Connect it in right here, like so. And then the right side of the bike, you actually have two connectors. Just going to pop them loose, like so. And then we're going to put that connector on. Pretty much the exact same thing, just in reverse. Connect there. Connect there. I'm going to put these right back where that one came out, like so. And like so. So then what we're going to do is reach over here on the back side and just feed our slack through. Just like that. Grab the other one. There we go. All right, and that extension's in. All right, so that's all there is to that. All right, so now we can put the bars on. You can see on this side, this is the end of our stock wire with the connector of extension, the end of the stock wire with the connector of extension. So we've got a full 10-inch extension now. All right, so next step, we're going to be putting the bars on. Now that I've got these lined up, I might just go ahead and cinch these down. Now on the Ultra, I replaced the riser bushings with polyurethanes. Those were pretty soft. But I think with the trikes, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they use a different riser bushing because it seems like the handlebars are much stiffer in the amount than what the Ultra was, but it made a vast improvement in the Ultra with the leverage of the longer bars. So I decided not to change them out on this Tri-Glide. Yeah, so there's almost no give in those risers whatsoever. All right, so what I'm going to do next, I'm just going to go ahead and route my plug here for the throttle down through and connect it up to the connectors. And then I'm going to see about putting my other controls on. And I need to reroute for the brake line, get it up here, and then we got to put the extension on for the clutch cable. All right, to show you what I was talking about, rerouting these wires around your brake line. This is your throttle by wire, your main connection to your stereo, and these are accessory plugs. This one goes here, this one goes here, this one back stereo. So what you do is disconnect that, and then what you got to do is raise the fairing up out of the way. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but you pull your brake line through so you got room to get this harness out from behind this brake line. It's kind of stiff, but it can be done. Hardest one is this main plug for the stereo. Get it through, and then your two accessory plugs through. And that alone gives you like an extra 1.5 inches or so on your brake line. So then we got to go up here and see about disconnecting from this plastic holder that our brake line is in, and see if we can't raise it up a little bit up out of the way. and get us some more slack. Alright, so the next thing we got to do, I went ahead and got my master cylinder for my front brake up on the bars to show that we got plenty of slack. But I'm going to create some more slack here. I'm going to break this banjo bolt loose just enough to where I can rotate the line. But you do not want to let any air into it. So bring your master cylinder to level. Generally pretty much a 90 degree is all you need here. Bring it as close to the bar as you can and just snug it back down. And then later you want to make sure once you get everything tightened up, go ahead and snug that down really good. You see we got plenty of slack here. So the next thing that we do to make life a little bit easier, this is your brake line in question right here. So what we're going to do is give it a little bit more slack. I went ahead and popped this cover loose. This is where your electrical wires are. And what we're going to do, get this a little bit better perspective here so you can see what I'm doing. So this is the brake line right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the edge of this out to right here, and I'm going to cut a notch out right here for this brake line to go. Whenever you're cutting this out, make sure you don't cut any wires inside, because that kind of ruin your day a little bit. Notch big enough for this brake line to drop into. This way it doesn't interfere with your tank when you put it back on. That should be good. Okay, so we're going to go and put these cables back up there. Drop this one inside the box. Should be plenty of room for it in there. That's all there is to it. So now that brake line's out of the way, it won't be getting smashed by your tank. And we got more than enough room here for our brake line on the handlebars. Alright, so that's the worst of that. So I guess our next step is going to be putting in our clutch extension. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do, we're going to put in the clutch cable extension. Here you have the lower portion, your extension cover, then the actual extension. This is for the 6-inch extension kit. So what's going to happen, you're going to slide up the adjuster cover, get it out of the way. Then we're going to disconnect the cable. I'll show you here. Here's from the instructions. You can see we're going to go in, remove the locking clip, and then we're going to separate the cable at the bottom. Then we're going to remove these two parts, and that long tube is going to be removed. It will not be used again. Going to remove the cable from the bottom there, and then we're going to slide this bottom piece onto the cable, and then we're going to attach the extension onto the existing cable on the bottom end. And once that's done, I'm going to slide the extension tube over. Then basically go back and reconnect everything using the stock portion of the top cable. Then once it's all together, adjust the clutch once everything's mounted up, and then you're going to slide the stock adjuster cover back down. It's pretty simple. The instructions are really clear. So let's get started with this. Alright, so the tools you're going to need for this, you're going to need a flat tip screwdriver for releasing the locking clips, and a 7/16 and 3/8 inch wrench, and that's for the adjuster here. Is once you get this attached to the bottom half of your cable, this comes in and it locks down on the ball on the cable, and you lock it in, and that gives you your extension. So let's see if we can't get this. I went ahead and slid the adjuster sleeve up out of the way, and we're going to pop this lock off of here. Just like so. The lock has been released, and we come down here on the bottom, This is for the adjuster. You've got to come down here and push this cable out. Alright, so I've got the adjuster collapsed and locked in place to give you enough slack to push this cable off. So what you have to do is push it up, lift it. There's a couple little claws here that grab the cable end. Just kind of pull down on that to get your slack in it. You rotate it around, pry the end of the cable out from this, and then what we got to do is release this locking tab down here on the bottom so we can get this bottom piece off. Looks like I'm going to need a second screwdriver to get in there to pop that loose. Alright, so to make this easy, we're going to use two different tools here. You see you got a locking clip on either side on both ends here. So our goal is to get this yellow tube off the clutch cable. So we're going to pop these loose. There it goes, pulls right off. So this is the piece we will not be reusing. So what we're going to do now, this is the bottom piece that comes with the cable extension. We're going to put it on to the end of the cable. Drop it down like so. Then we're going to take our cable extension here. You loosen this up, give you room to hook to the cable. Sure, this is a lot easier if you don't have the lower nacelles with the radiators on them. If you had just your crash bar, it'd be a lot easier. Alright, so we've got the cable inserted into the extension. I'm going to tighten this up by hand, lock onto the cable. As you can see, it grabs onto the ball there. Alright, so we got that down finger tight. Run that nut down, the locking nut. So now we're going to use our wrenches and tighten this down. Alright, so now we've got our extension on. Alright, just like so. As you can see, here's the end where we're going to have to attach this end back into here. But what we have to do now, we're going to slide our extension tube onto the cable. Slide the extension tube down, get it lined up with the base. Rotate this tube in. Well, there isn't a hell of a lot to see right now, so I'm going to have to go ahead and get the camera off. So I've got to rotate this tube to where I can access the slot on the cable, to where I can connect that cable onto the extension. Alright, so here's what we got right now. See if we can get in here to see this. Yes, right here you can see the window with the cable end. So what I've got to do now, this will end up riding right here. It'll be behind this clip right here before it's all said and done. So what I got to do now is get this end of the cable into there, attach it into the cable onto this, and then slide this cover back down on top. All right, everybody, it looks like we got it done finally. No extra parts laying around, so that's always a good sign. Like I said, I believe I've got everything set up identical to on my Ultra. So the next thing to do is just get onto it, make sure the angle of my controls are good. I think this brake may have to roll up a little bit. Clutch is looking okay. Everything's out of the way where it should be. All fasteners on, fairing back in place, turn signals back on, fuel line back on. Looks like it's all good to go. So I guess the next step is, I'm going to go and put some miles on this thing, and I'm going to see if that improves my shoulder and back pain that I was getting off these stock bars. And I'll tell you that they're cool, they're kind of nostalgic, but they suck, especially for a larger person. So I'm going to take these out on the road so you get a look from the front here and stand up just a little bit above the fairing. And one thing I noticed that putting the taller bars on my Ultra, that actually got rid of a lot of the buffeting that I was getting off of this thing, because for some reason the wind comes up here across the front of the tank and it was hitting the original controls right here and it was just causing some swirling, and I tell you, it was quite annoying. So the last 3,000 miles on this thing, that buffeting was just kind of not pleasant. So hopefully I'll take care of some of it. If not, I got a few other things I might do to try to cut the buffeting down. But I only really notice it whenever I'm wearing a helmet, and it's something I don't do much here in Texas unless I'm going long distance. So there you have it. I said this is the LA Choppers 14-inch Batwing ape hangers. I really like these. They got the classic curves instead of all the chisel points and everything. To me, that belongs on some kind of custom bike, not a stock one. But it's your choice, you know, your bike. Whatever you like, you go for it. But I personally like the old classic looks like this. All right, folks, that pretty much wraps it up. As I said, this whole project was on my dime, out of my wallet. Next thing we might be doing is fishtails on this one, just like I did on the Ultra. God, it's hot out here. Very, very humid. It's about 6 o'clock in the evening now. This project altogether, with a little bit of break in between, took me about 4 hours. It's not that bad. If I can do it, you can do it. I said the LA Choppers bars, the Fat Bagger Clutch Cable Extension, and then through JP Cycles, I got the control extensions. So all in all, it was pretty good. It cost just a little bit more than what it did on the Ultra, because I had to do the clutch extension. That cost about $125 for the clutch extension, but it's well worth it. All right, well, thanks for joining me. I'll catch you next time.